Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his cargo ship and watched the stars through the main window. The ship was called Meridian Dawn, and it was carrying supplies to the outer colonies. Jake had been a cargo captain for 15 years, and nothing exciting ever happened on these runs. Today was different, though. The communication officer named Lisa Park suddenly looked up from her station with wide eyes. She was hearing something strange through her headset. Lisa had been working on ships for 10 years, and she knew every type of signal that existed in human space. This was not one of them. The signal was weak and filled with static, but there was definitely someone trying to talk. Lisa worked with the computers for 20 minutes before the universal translator started working. When the voice finally came through the speakers, everyone on the bridge stopped what they were doing. The voice was desperate and afraid. It spoke in a language no human had ever heard before, but the translator made the words clear. Someone was asking for help. They were talking about creatures called devourers who were destroying their world. The voice mentioned children hiding in deep places and begged anyone who could hear to help them. Jake felt his stomach drop. In all his years traveling through space, he had never encountered aliens. No human had. Earth scientists always said first contact would happen someday, but everyone thought it would be peaceful. This was not peaceful. The navigator, Tom Bradley, was checking his instruments with shaking hands. He looked up at Jake with a pale face. The alien signal was coming from a star system only 18 hours away at maximum speed. They were the closest human ship to respond. Jake walked to the center of the bridge and looked at his crew. There were 37 people on the Meridian Dawn. They were merchants and engineers and scientists. None of them were soldiers. The ship had no weapons, except for a few mining lasers that were meant for cutting asteroids. Lisa continued monitoring the alien signal, and her face grew more worried with each message. The aliens were describing massive ships that could destroy entire planets. They talked about technology that sounded centuries ahead of anything humans possessed. Whatever was attacking them made Earth's entire space fleet look like toys. Tom was still working at his navigation station when he made a discovery that changed everything. The cargo hold contained an experimental quantum communicator that was supposed to connect distant colonies with Earth instantly. The device had never been tested over such long distances, but it might work. Jake made a decision that would affect not just his crew, but all of humanity. He ordered Lisa to prepare the quantum transmitter for an emergency message to Earth. The message was simple, but it would echo across the galaxy in ways none of them could imagine. The message said that they had encountered aliens who were under attack. It included the coordinates of the alien world and requested immediate military assistance. Jake added that this was humanity's first contact with another species and that lives were at stake. As the quantum transmitter powered up, Jake thought about what they were doing. His small cargo ship was about to request that Earth send its military forces to fight an unknown enemy in a distant star system. The enemy was so powerful that it was destroying an entire civilization. Most people would call this insane, but Jake had heard the fear in the alien voices. He had listened to them talk about their children hiding from monsters. He knew that sometimes doing the right thing meant taking impossible risks. The quantum transmitter activated with a low humming sound. The experimental device used strange physics that Jake did not understand to send messages faster than light. If it worked, the message would reach Earth in minutes instead of years. Tom checked his instruments again and confirmed that the alien signals were getting weaker. Whatever was happening in that distant star system was reaching its final stages. If help was going to arrive, it needed to come soon. Jake looked out at the stars and wondered if he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. His cargo ship was flying toward a battle between forces that could destroy planets. Earth might send help, or it might decide that one cargo ship was not worth risking a war. The crew worked in nervous silence as they prepared for the 18-hour journey to the alien world. They checked their limited weapons and made sure the ship's shields were working properly. Everyone knew they might be flying into a situation where they would all die. Lisa continued monitoring communications and discovered something that made the situation even more serious. The quantum message had been intercepted by several unknown sources. Other civilizations were listening to human communications, and they now knew that Earth existed. Jake realized that his simple SOS message had announced humanity's presence to the entire galaxy. Every species that monitored deep space communications now knew about Earth and its location. Some of those species might be friendly, but others might not be. The Meridian Dawn continued flying toward the alien world while Earth decided how to respond to the most important message in human history. Jake and his crew had started something that would change everything. They had sent an SOS that would make the universe fear humanity's military power. The ship flew through the darkness between stars while its crew wondered what they would find when they arrived. Behind them, Earth was mobilizing its forces for humanity's first interstellar war. Ahead of them, an alien civilization was fighting for its survival against an enemy that consumed entire worlds. Jake Morrison had been a simple cargo captain that morning. By evening, he had become the man who introduced humanity to the galaxy and requested military assistance that would reshape the balance of power among the stars. The SOS message was traveling through quantum space toward Earth, where it would trigger the largest military mobilization in human history. The alien voices grew weaker with each passing hour, but they did not stop calling for help. Somewhere in that distant star system, people were dying while Jake's small ship raced through space to do whatever it could. The crew of the Meridian Dawn had no idea that their rescue attempt would soon become the most important battle humanity had ever fought. Admiral Rebecca Stone stood in the command center deep beneath the mountains of Colorado and stared at the message that had just changed human history. The quantum communication from the cargo ship Meridian Dawn had arrived 90 minutes ago, and the response was immediate. Every military base on Earth and in the colonies was now preparing for war. The message was short, but it contained information that shocked everyone who read it. Humanity was not alone in the universe, and their first contact with aliens was a desperate call for help. An unknown species was being destroyed by something called Devourers, and a human cargo ship was the only vessel close enough to respond. Lieutenant Colonel Marcus Webb was the head of Earth's Xenological Threats Division. His job was to prepare for contact with alien species, but he had always imagined first contact would be peaceful. Instead, he was looking at reports of an enemy that could destroy entire star systems. Marcus had been studying the alien signals for 2 hours, and what he found was terrifying. The Devourers were not just attacking one world. Earth's deep space monitoring stations had detected similar energy signatures from 17 different star systems over the past 6 months. Each system had gone silent after the attacks. The power levels coming from the Devourer ships were beyond anything in human technology. Their weapons could crack planets, and their vessels were the size of small moons. Fighting them would be like attacking the sun with a flashlight. General Patricia Hayes commanded Earth's Strategic Response Division, and she was responsible for humanity's fastest military ships. The Vanguard Battle Group was the most advanced fleet Earth had ever built, but it was designed to fight human enemies. No one had planned for this. Admiral Stone looked at the tactical displays showing Earth's military capabilities. The entire human space fleet consisted of less than 200 ships spread across dozens of star systems. Most of them were patrol vessels and cargo escorts. Only a few were built for serious combat. The Vanguard Battle Group contained 7 ships and 12,000 crew members. They were humanity's best-trained soldiers, and their vessels carried the most advanced weapons Earth could build. Under normal circumstances, they could defeat any human military force in existence, but these were not normal circumstances. The enemy they would face had technology that was centuries beyond human understanding. The Devourers had destroyed civilizations that spanned multiple star systems. They consumed entire worlds for resources and turned them into more weapons. Marcus finished his analysis and presented his findings to the command staff. The aliens who sent the distress call appeared to be peaceful beings who had never developed serious military technology. They were being slaughtered by an enemy that specialized in consuming advanced civilizations. The interesting part was what the aliens said about their attackers. The Devourers had apparently never encountered what they called violent primitives before. Most species in the galaxy seemed to have evolved beyond warfare and developed peaceful societies instead. Admiral Stone smiled coldly when she heard this information. Humans had definitely not evolved beyond warfare. Earth's history was filled with thousands of years of constant conflict. Humanity had developed the most efficient methods of killing that had ever existed on their planet. The decision to send the Vanguard battle group was made in less than an hour. General Hayes argued that it was suicide to send 7 ships against an enemy that could destroy planets. Admiral Stone replied that sometimes suicide missions were the only option available. Captain Nina cross-commanded the flagship Vanguard, and she was one of Earth's most experienced combat officers. She had fought in 3 colonial wars and earned a reputation for aggressive tactics that always achieved victory. Her crew was equally experienced and equally ruthless. The other ships in the battle group were commanded by officers who shared Nina's philosophy of warfare. Captain Alan Rodriguez of the Defiant was known for never retreating from any battle. Captain Sarah Mitchell of the Resolute had once destroyed an entire rebel fleet with only 2 ships. As the Vanguard battle group prepared to launch, Admiral Stone watched from the observation deck of Earth's largest orbital shipyard. 7 ships were about to carry humanity's reputation into the galaxy for the first time. What happened next would determine how every alien species viewed humans forever. The ships launched simultaneously and disappeared into hyperspace with a flash of brilliant light. Their destination was 18 hours away, but the journey would take them into the most important battle humanity had ever fought. They were carrying weapons designed by a species that had never stopped learning how to kill. Earth's military had trained for decades to fight other humans, but they had never considered what would happen if they encountered aliens. The Vanguard battle group was about to discover that human military doctrine was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Meanwhile, the quantum message had been intercepted by monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Dozens of alien civilizations now knew that a new species had entered galactic affairs. They were watching with intense interest to see how these unknown humans would perform against the Devourers. Most species in the galaxy remembered the Devourers with terror. For 3 centuries, these monsters had consumed world after world while civilized beings hid in distant star systems. No military force had ever successfully fought them and won. The peaceful aliens who received the human message were curious about this new species that claimed to have a military capable of fighting the Devourers. They wondered what kind of beings would volunteer to battle an enemy that had driven the entire galaxy into hiding. Admiral Stone continued watching the stars long after the Vanguard battle group had disappeared. Somewhere in the darkness, her ships were racing toward a battle that would be remembered forever. Earth's first interstellar war was about to begin, and humanity's military was ready to show the universe what humans did when innocent people needed help. The quantum communicator continued monitoring signals from the distant battle zone. Soon, it would carry reports of humanity's first contact with an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries. The SOS message had started something that would change the balance of power among the stars and make every alien civilization fear humanity's military capabilities. Captain Nina Cross stood on the bridge of the Vanguard as her battle group dropped out of hyperspace and immediately faced the most horrifying sight any human had ever witnessed. The alien homeworld hung in space like a wounded animal while massive mechanical creatures fed on its surface. The planet had once been beautiful with blue oceans and green continents that reminded Nina of Earth. Now half of it was covered in metal constructs that moved like giant insects across the landscape. The machines were literally eating the world and converting it into more ships and weapons. David Kim at the communications station was monitoring signals from the planet's surface. His face was pale as he reported that life signs were still present on the unconsumed portions of the world. Millions of aliens were hiding in underground shelters while their planet was devoured above them. The tactical display showed the enemy fleet in detail, and the numbers were terrifying. 47 Devourer ships orbited the dying world, and each one was larger than Earth's biggest space station. Their hulls were patchworks of consumed materials including metals and stones and what looked disturbingly like organic matter. Commander Maria Torres was responsible for tactical analysis, and she studied the enemy ships with growing disbelief. The Devour vessels were not just warships, but mobile factories that could process entire planets into raw materials. They represented technology that was thousands of years ahead of human capabilities. Nina opened a communication channel to the other ships in her battle group. The Defiant and Resolute and 4 other vessels waited for her orders, while their crews prepared for what seemed like certain death. 7 human ships against 47 alien monsters was not a fair fight, but Nina had not come here to fight. Fairly, she had come here to show the universe what humans did when innocent people were dying. Her voice was calm as she addressed her fellow captains and told them to prepare for immediate combat operations. Captain Alan Rodriguez responded first with enthusiasm in his voice. His crew on the Defiant had been hoping for a real battle, and this was certainly that. The other captains confirmed their readiness to engage despite the overwhelming odds they faced. As the human ships moved into attack formation, something strange happened. The Devourer fleet suddenly stopped its methodical consumption of the planet and turned toward the small human force. Every massive ship oriented itself to face the newcomers. David Kim announced that they were receiving a transmission from the Devourer fleet. The main screen activated to show a being that defied description. It appeared to be part machine and part organic matter, as if dozens of different species had been fused together into one horrible creature. When the Devourer spoke, its voice was a chorus of thousands of assimilated beings speaking in unison. It told the humans that they were interrupting a harvest in progress and that their technology was primitive. The creature ordered them to withdraw immediately. Nina stood up and faced the screen with complete confidence. She identified herself as Captain Nina Cross of the United Earthship Vanguard and informed the Devourer that it was committing genocide against a peaceful species. She demanded that it withdraw immediately or face the consequences. The Devourer Collective seemed confused by this response. It explained that it had consumed civilizations that spanned star systems and harvested the resources of 1,000 worlds. It asked what 7 small ships could possibly do against its massive fleet. Nina cut the transmission without answering and turned to her weapons officer, Lieutenant Blake. She ordered him to target the lead Devourer ship with all batteries and fire everything they had. The response to the alien question would be delivered through actions rather than words. The Vanguard erupted in controlled fury as every weapon system discharged simultaneously. Laser batteries and missile launchers and particle beam weapons painted space with brilliant destruction. The other human ships followed immediately and added their firepower to the assault. What happened next was recorded by monitoring stations across the galaxy and would be studied by alien military analysts for decades. The lead Devourer ship, which had survived attacks from entire planetary defense fleets, began to shudder under the human assault. The massive alien vessel started to list to one side as explosions rippled across its hull. For the first time in 3 centuries, a Devourer ship had been damaged in combat. The impossible was happening, and every species monitoring the battle could hardly believe what they were seeing. The human attack had succeeded not because of superior technology, but because of superior tactics. The aliens had evolved beyond warfare and fought defensively, trying to preserve their forces. Humans fought like they expected to die and cared only about destroying their enemies. Nina ordered her ship to accelerate directly toward the damaged Devourer vessel while continuing to fire every weapon. The Vanguard used its reinforced hull as a battering ram and smashed into the alien ship at full speed while its guns fired at point-blank range. The Defiant positioned itself inside the debris field of a destroyed asteroid and used the cover to launch hit and run attacks against multiple enemy ships. Captain Rodriguez had his crew firing from concealment while moving constantly to avoid return fire. The Resolute allowed itself to be grappled by a Devourer ship and then detonated its secondary ammunition stores while still connected to the enemy vessel. Captain Mitchell sacrificed her ship's structural integrity to destroy an alien vessel 10 times larger. The battle continued for hours with human ships, using tactics that no civilized species would consider. They rammed enemy vessels and detonated their own weapons and fought with a savagery that the Devourers had never encountered before. Across the galaxy, alien civilizations watched in stunned amazement as 7 primitive ships battled 47 advanced vessels and somehow managed to win. The humans were demonstrating a level of military aggression that most species had forgotten was possible. The ethereal collective had hidden in pocket dimensions for centuries to escape the Devourers. The Christian hive mind had retreated to the galactic rim. Dozens of other civilizations had abandoned their homeworlds rather than fight. But these humans were fighting like violence itself had taken physical form. As the battle raged, the alien civilians on the planet below watched through their instruments and could not understand what they were seeing. 7 small ships were destroying the fleet that had conquered half the galaxy. The impossible rescue they had prayed for was actually happening. The battle had been raging for 6 hours, and the impossible was continuing to happen. The human fleet, despite being outnumbered 7-1, was not just surviving but actually winning against an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for 3 centuries. Admiral Stone watched the battle feeds from Earth's command center through the quantum communicator that allowed real-time observation of humanity's first interstellar military engagement. What she saw challenged every principle of military strategy that had ever been written. General Hayes stood beside her with her mouth open in disbelief as she watched human ships execute maneuvers that should have resulted in their immediate destruction. The Vanguard had just completed its 3rd ramming attack against a Devourer vessel and was somehow still operational. Lieutenant Colonel Webb was analyzing the battle data and trying to understand how 7 human ships were defeating 47 alien vessels equipped with technology centuries beyond Earth's capabilities. The answer he found was both simple and terrifying. The Devourers had spent 300 years fighting species that had evolved beyond violence and warfare. Every civilization they encountered tried to fight defensively while preserving their forces and minimizing casualties. The peaceful aliens thought like civilized beings who valued life above victory. But humans were fighting like they expected to die, and cared only about inflicting maximum damage on their enemies. Every tactical decision prioritized destroying Devourer ships over preserving human lives. The crews were willing to sacrifice themselves to achieve victory. Captain Cross had ordered the Vanguard to ram enemy vessels 3 times during the battle. Each collision had damaged her ship severely, but had also crippled or destroyed much larger Devourer vessels. Her crew was fighting with the dedication of people who had accepted death. The Defiant had positioned itself inside the wreckage of destroyed ships and was using the debris as cover while launching surprise attacks. Captain Rodriguez was fighting a guerrilla war in space using tactics that the Devourers had never encountered before. The Resolute had allowed enemy ships to grapple with it and then detonated explosive charges while the vessels were still connected. Captain Mitchell was using her own ship as a weapon and destroying enemies much larger than herself through pure aggression. Across the galaxy, 17 different species were monitoring the battle through their deep space sensors. The ethereal collective had emerged from their dimensional hiding places to watch. The Christian hive mind was holding emergency council sessions to discuss what they were witnessing. The peaceful aliens who had spent centuries hiding from the Devourers could not understand what they were seeing. A primitive species with inferior technology was defeating the most powerful military force in the galaxy through sheer determination and tactical brilliance. Back in the battle zone, Captain Cross surveyed her bridge where half her crew was injured, and her ship was operating on backup power systems. They had expended 80% of their ammunition and taken massive structural damage. But the space around them was filled with the debris of 31 destroyed Devourer vessels. Commander Torres reported something that seemed impossible. The remaining Devourer ships were retreating from the battle and moving toward hyperspace jump points. For the first time in their recorded history, the Devourers were abandoning a harvest operation. The communications officer suddenly received a transmission from the planet's surface. The aliens they had come to rescue were still alive and trying to contact their unexpected saviors. The main screen showed a being that looked somewhat like a human, but with 4 arms and skin that shimmered with changing colors. The alien spoke with wonder and disbelief in its voice. It thanked the unknown guardians who had come to their aid and expressed amazement that anyone had been able to fight the Devourers successfully. In 300 years, no species had ever defeated them in battle. Nanya smiled despite her exhaustion, and replied that humans specialized in doing impossible things. She did not mention that her ships were barely functional and that her crews had suffered massive casualties. The victory had come at a terrible price, but it was still a victory. The implications of the battle were already spreading across the galaxy through quantum communication networks. Every major civilization was receiving reports that a new species had appeared and successfully defeated the Devourers in open combat. The message being transmitted was simple but revolutionary. The humans fought like death itself and did not retreat or surrender or try to preserve themselves. They were the violence that peaceful civilizations had forgotten they needed. The Galactic Council, which had existed in secret for 2 centuries while hiding from the Devourers, was preparing to emerge from the shadows. They wanted to meet this new species that had accomplished what no one thought possible. Admiral Stone continued watching the battle aftermath from Earth's command center. Her 7 ships had changed the balance of power in the galaxy through 6 hours of the most savage combat in recorded history. Humanity had announced its presence to the universe in the most dramatic way possible. The rescued aliens were sending grateful messages while the retreating Devourers were broadcasting warnings to their collective about the dangerous new species they had encountered. Every civilization monitoring the communications was learning that humans were unlike anything they had ever seen. The SOS message from the cargo ship Meridian Dawn had started a chain of events that would reshape galactic politics forever. Humanity's military had demonstrated capabilities that made every other species reconsider their understanding of warfare and violence. Deep space monitoring stations across the galaxy were detecting something unprecedented. The Devourers were not just retreating from this battle, but were beginning to fortify their positions throughout their territory. For the first time in their existence, they were afraid of being attacked. The human victory had proven that the Devourers could be defeated and that their 300-year reign of terror could be ended. More importantly, it had shown that humans possessed military capabilities that were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Captain Cross and her battle group were preparing to escort the rescued aliens to safety while Earth decided how to respond to the dozens of first contact requests that were flooding their communication systems. The galaxy wanted to meet the species that had made the Devourers afraid. 3 months after the Battle of Kethver, the galaxy had changed completely. The Galactic Council, which had hidden in secret for 2 centuries while avoiding the Devourers, had finally revealed itself to the universe. They wanted to meet humanity, and they wanted to meet them immediately. Admiral Stone stood in the council chambers aboard the massive space station, Concordia, facing representatives of 47 different alien species. The diversity was overwhelming, with beings of pure energy and crystalline creatures and hive minds and forms that seemed to defy the laws of physics. But despite their differences, all of these species shared one common trait. They were looking at Admiral Stone with a mixture of respect and fear that she had never seen before. The human victory over the Devourers had changed how every civilization in the galaxy viewed her species. The ethereal collective spoke first through their shimmering representative that communicated in harmonic frequencies. They told Admiral Stone that humanity had accomplished something they had believed was impossible. The Devourers had not just retreated, but had completely withdrawn from the entire galactic sector, the Kristen. HiveMind added that their long-range sensors indicated the Devourers had moved their entire fleet to the galactic rim. For the first time in 3 centuries, the monsters that had terrorized civilized space appeared to be genuinely afraid of something. Admiral Stone listened to their reports with calm professionalism. She replied that fear was a rational response when encountering something that could destroy you. The simple statement sent a wave of nervous energy through the assembled representatives. The representative of the Kethver people was the first to ask the question that everyone wanted answered. The four-armed alien gestured gracefully as it stood and addressed the human admiral directly. They wanted to know why humanity had saved them when they were complete strangers. Stone considered the question carefully before answering. She explained that helping people in danger was the right thing to do. When something was destroying innocent civilians, you stopped it, even if it was dangerous and even if it might cost you everything. The ethereal collective pressed for more information. They pointed out that humanity could have hidden from the devourers like every other civilized species had done when faced with overwhelming force. They wanted to understand why humans had chosen to fight instead. Admiral Stone's response was simple and terrifying. She told them that humans were not civilized in the way other species understood the term. Humanity was a species that had evolved through constant warfare because everything on their planet had tried to kill them, she explained. That humans had learned to fight because fighting was necessary for survival. They had learned to win because losing meant extinction. Most importantly, they had never learned to hide from threats because hiding was not an option on Earth. The Kristen hive mind pulsed with complex colors as it processed this information. They stated that this was why the devourers feared humanity. Humans were the opposite of everything the monsters had encountered during their 300-year reign of terror. Stone nodded and completed their thought. The devourers consumed peaceful species that were rational and self-preserving. But humans were the consumers of consumers. They were the violence that evolution had forgotten to breed out of most civilized species. The council chamber erupted in whispered conversations as dozens of alien species discussed what they had learned about humanity. Finally, the eldest representative spoke with a voice like wind through ancient trees. The being looked like a tree made of starlight and commanded respect from every other species present. The elder formally invited humanity to join the Galactic Council. They offered knowledge and technology and alliance with 47 worlds in exchange for human military protection. They wanted humans to teach them how to fight like humans fought. Admiral Stone looked around the chamber at representatives of species that had hidden in shadows for 3 centuries. She smiled and told them they had a deal, but that learning to fight like humans required learning to think like humans. She explained that the first lesson was understanding that sometimes the most terrifying thing in the universe was not the monster trying to kill you. It was the person who was willing to kill the monster no matter what the cost might be. As the council session ended, Admiral Stone reflected on how much had changed since the cargo ship Meridian Dawn had sent its desperate SOS message. That simple call for help had introduced humanity to the galaxy and triggered the largest military mobilization in human history. The rescue of the Kethver people had demonstrated that human military doctrine was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Centuries of constant warfare had created a species that fought with savage efficiency and never considered retreat as an option. Deep space monitoring stations across the galaxy continued reporting on devourer movements, and the news was unprecedented. The monsters were not just retreating, but were building massive defensive fortifications along the galactic rim. For the first time in their existence, they were preparing to be attacked. Other species were requesting human military advisors to help them develop defensive capabilities. The peaceful civilizations that had hidden from the devourers for centuries now wanted to learn the art of warfare from the masters of violence. Earth was establishing diplomatic relations with dozens of alien governments while simultaneously expanding its military production capabilities. Humanity had become the galaxy's protector, and they took that responsibility seriously. The quantum communication networks that connected civilized space carried constant updates about human military activities. Every species wanted to know where human ships were operating and what threats they were addressing. Captain Cross and the survivors of the Vanguard battle group had become heroes throughout the galaxy. Their tactics were studied by alien military analysts who were trying to understand how 7 primitive ships had defeated 47 advanced vessels. The answer was always the same. Humans fought like they expected to die and cared only about achieving victory. They used their own ships as weapons and sacrificed themselves to destroy enemies much larger than themselves. Admiral Stone left the council chambers knowing that humanity had forever changed the balance of power in the galaxy. The SOS message from one cargo ship had announced that Earth's military had arrived and that the universe would never be the same. The Devourers were no longer the most feared force in galactic space. That distinction now belonged to humanity, and their willingness to fight impossible battles for people they had never met. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity's military, and that fear would keep the peace for generations to come.